The Falconeer, not to be mistaken for the Falconer by Elizabeth May, released in 2013, and about a woman in the 1800s who can sense fairies, is a game about falconeers. They ride the gigantic beasts, and not only do they act as the main form of transport within the world, they pack one heck of a punch in combat. It's a relatively new game for the Switch, originally being released in 2020, and is made by one single developer. I think it's about this point where I should juxtapose this with another game that was made by a very large team with a very high budget. Yeah. Ouch. And Thomas Sala really has done an incredible job, especially when you consider the difficulties of bringing across titles to the Switch in the first place. Thanks to the developer for the review copy. Is this one Falconeer or Falcon? Let's find out. The story follows an attempted assassination on the current Empress, but it's told through several different tales, which are known as chapters in the game, and can be selected at any point, with much of the narrative delivery being voice acted. There's more than a nod to classics such as Star Fox in the way those characters are depicted in the top left hand corner of the screen, and often these will be your wingmen and fellow Falconeers. But several factions are introduced throughout the tale who will be equally vying for power in the region, and it was a clever idea, allowing you to experience the story from the perspective of many of these different factions, such as the Northern Imperium, the largest of them, the Mansa Order, who are focused on technological advances. There's the civilian free houses, the Freebooter Rebellion, who were banished by the Imperium, and then, of course, the world would not be complete without pirates. The Falconeer shares a lot of its gameplay DNA with Star Fox. You control your bird with the left stick and move the camera with the right. You can lock on to enemies with Y, but interestingly, you can target secondary areas such as mounted turrets on them to essentially cripple their offensive capabilities. There's a stamina system at play here as well, which is shown down here, and by using one of the bumpers you can increase your speed, do barrel rolls left and right, which is essential for dodging enemy fire, and you can tap the camera button to lock on to the current target, which becomes quite a useful little addition. Once you've depleted the enemy's health, they will plummet towards the earth, and you'll do so using a variety of different weapons. The initial one focuses on speed at the cost of damage, but as you save up the in-game currency you can purchase improved weapons. And there's a multiple rocket secondary a la District 9, which can only be used very sparingly. Ammunition isn't infinite, and in the Falconeer to replenish it, you'll have to plunge yourself headfirst into the nearest storm. The electricity will charge up those cells on your back, and you'll be ready to fight once more. I was pleased to find that there are a number of different enemy types, not just other falcons, from airships, dragons, beetles, and the awesome looking sea creatures which sometimes dive beneath the waves. There are also boss fights with stronger enemies shown in the top right hand corner of the screen, and combat in general is just a whole lot of fun, with a few additions like scooping up bombs and being able to drop them silently on your enemy. Despite its seemingly simplistic flying mechanics, there's a touch more nuance to the flight system which makes it very intuitive. When you're cruising in a straight line, the stamina will actually deplete at a lower rate. Conversely, when you're climbing, it's much faster. However, when you inevitably run out, you can boost refill it by diving towards the ground. It might seem like a minor thing, but these are not planes, they are birds, and by forcing the player to mimic natural behaviours and tendencies, whilst also tying that to a gameplay mechanic, was a stroke of genius. As you progress through the game and undertake some of those different storylines, you'll unlock a range of different birds. But in all honesty, my favourite was the one that didn't look anything like one and was more like a dragon. They have different statistics, and these can be augmented with mutations purchased from shops, known simply as mutagens, and they're essentially passive permanent buffs to your class. Each of the chapters share similarities. For one, you'll have your home base, which you can teleport back to at any time from the menu, and then there's the story missions and side quests. Story missions, as the name suggests, are the meat of the game, and they range from simple escort to full-on assaults of enemy bases. Depending on the chapter, there's also a varying amount of side content, and when the game was first released, it was criticised for its lack of other activities, as well as some of the difficulty spikes, and this was addressed before this release in the Kraken update released in December 2020. So this version of the Falconeer is definitely the best one. They added in those wreck diving missions and a few more activities to undertake in the world. It's a good thing they did as well, because even as it stands, it does feel a little thin on the ground when it comes to tertiary content. It's by no means bad, but there's several things that I would love to see in the sequel. In essence, adding a trading system would massively boost the appeal for me, and a slight refinement of the faction system, particularly in how it's delivered to the player. It can be a little opaque as to your current standing in the universe. The only way you'll really know is when you accidentally shoot someone who's on your side and suddenly you're declared a pirate and everyone's against you. Coming back once again though to the fact that this is a single developer is astounding. The game has a real vision about it, and while it's not executed perfectly and there are some areas for improvement, it's a fun and sometimes strangely relaxing game. The combat's so slick, running as it does at near 60 FPS, and more importantly it feels skill based regardless of your current loadout. What it does well, but it just stops short of being a truly great game. Overall, I give gameplay 16 out of 20, and the controls also score 16 out of 20. Visually, the Falconeer has a very distinctive style and is easily one of the best Unity engine games on Switch as far as performance goes. It runs most of the time between 55 and 60 frames per second in both docked and handheld. However, there are the occasional stutters. When there's a great amount going on screen, you will notice a slight delay, almost as if something's loading in. And while it's very minor indeed here, when it does happen, it's quite noticeable. Now, that critique aside, it feels buttery smooth for 95% of your playtime. Even when it's running at 50, it still feels very good. And let's be honest, there really aren't many games on Switch that target 60 FPS. And do it so well. Clever use of volumetric effects, and it has that low poly style, which means it's quite easy to get away with, in air quotes, low resolution textures, while it still looks very good. The main win for me here is the artistic decisions made by Thomas. The game uses a day-night cycle with an incredible array of colours used at different times of the day. Simply put, it looks beautiful. The soundtrack was composed by Benedict Nichols and is on par with the visuals and artwork. There are some excellent sounds here, and as far as music goes, the game is really nice. My criticism comes perhaps when we look at those voice-acted segments.
Missing. I'm sending you to search the area and find the navigation boys.
They're classically over the top, but some of the regional accents are downright shocking. It's nothing new for a computer game, but it stands out against the other aspects. The same can be said for the 3D character designs. There's just not enough variety. And actually, I think a 2D, well-illustrated image would have worked better. For want of a better word, they just look a bit derpy. Overall, visuals and performance score 16 out of 20, and the audio also scores 16 out of 20. The Falconeer Warrior Edition includes both of the aforementioned DLCs, and all of the tweaks and updates the game's seen since launch. It will set you back £24.99 or your regional equivalent, and there's certainly a lot of content here with the multiple different campaigns, lots of upgrades, and I don't personally feel like £24.99 is unreasonable for such a well-polished release. It really does put to shame some of the bigger companies. I so wanted to say some names there, but I didn't. He ate the words right back up, didn't he? With all of that said, I would have liked to have seen a touch more variety, but I love the offbeat steampunk come pirate world that's been created here. The value scores 16 out of 20. So there we have it for the Falconeer Warrior Edition on Nintendo Switch. I'm pleasantly surprised. It feels old school in many ways, and by that I mean it has a simplistic design but a clear focus on gameplay with good controls, an interesting enough side cast, and there's heaps of potential here for a sequel. Overall, it scores a SwitchUp score of 80%. Is this one you're interested in? Are you as impressed as I am by the single developer's efforts? And just a big thanks for watching. I know some of you often say, hey, this isn't my type of game, but I watch because I like the content, and yeah, we really do appreciate that. Thanks to the patrons who support us each and every month. If you want to join them, all the links are down in the description, as are the links to our Discord channel and to our Pixel Heart sponsor. If you want 15% off of any of their games, just go and use the code SwitchUpShing. As always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch Up. Cheers, guys. See ya!